Three tomatoes are walking down the street. Papa tomato, mama tomato, and baby tomato.
Plain Ketchup presents.
Starring Lindsay Hinkle and Jamie Nelson.
So this is Plain Ketchup, is it? I prefer something with a little more kick.
Everybody's favorite condiment-themed entertainment podcast.
Put some hot sauce on my burrito, baby!
Hot sauce.
Nobody puts ketchup on a hot dog.
You're listening to Hot Sauce on PlainKetchup.com. I'm Jamie Nelson, and with me, my co-host, Lindsay Hinkle. What have you been up to late, Lindsay?
You know how, like, churches have those bazaars? Like, all the little old ladies clean out their attics and sell all their stuff.
Like a garage sale.
Except cheaper and more stuff. I go in there, and I find this 4-book set, leather-bound, of Shakespeare stories.
Stories. Once upon a time.
Of Shakespeare plays. And they're selling it for $1, and I'm like, why is this so cheap? I open it up, and it's in, like, Dutch or something. It's not German, but it's similar. It's a Germanic language. But, so anyways, I bought them, and I don't think I'll ever be able to read them, but they look really cool.
Well, you know what's funny? I feel like if Sherlock was in your house looking for the book that you pull to open the secret passage, and it'd be like, wait a minute, this one's in a language Lindsay doesn't even speak. This must be the lever.
And then it'd be like, oh, nope, actually it's the Angus thongs and full frontal snogging.
Almost a language Lindsay doesn't speak.
Almost. British is just so hard sometimes. Yeah, but anyway, so I've kind of had a little bit of a love affair with Shakespeare since for the better part of 2 decades now.
Does Mrs. Shakespeare know?
Is there a Mrs. Shakespeare?
There wasn't there? Elizabeth or something? No, that was Elizabethan. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, the Queen? But the better question is, does Hanson know about this?
Aww.
I think they're like, oh man, Lindsay might be spending some money on Shakespeare instead of us this year.
I now like this idea that products have consciousness. It's the little Hanson CDs with little faces on them going, pick me, pick me, pick me.
I'm pretty sure if that was the case, like, you know, there would just be this bust of Shakespeare, like, I'd be reaching for the DVD of Idle Hands. I'd be like, oh, this, it's like, I won't have to think about it. It'll just be funny. My hand's going closer and closer and closer. And the bust of Shakespeare just looks at me and goes, have some fucking class. I, like, just look ashamed, and I go and I grab King Lear off the shelf.
Why in the world are you, this is in your house or in the store?
No, this would be on my bookshelf.
Oh, thank God. I was thinking, why in the world are they putting Idle Hands next to King Lear?
I thought that the bigger question would be, what the hell kind of drugs are you on? That stuff's talking to you.
So speaking of Shakespeare, we have a Shakespearean actor on the line right now. We're going to try to grab him while he's in his car on the way somewhere. What do you think about that, Lindsay?
Ooh, who is it?
It's Paterson Joseph. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Why don't we start with Shakespeare, because you've done a fair amount of stage acting, and is Shakespeare something that you generally like go after, or is it just sort of turned out that way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've just about come to the end of a run of Julius Caesar at Stratford-upon-Avon, and Shakespeare has been a major part of my life, because when I was a young, shy 18-year-old, I was able to put these amazing words in my mouth and sound like a very smart king, prince, or duke, and it made me feel empowered. So whenever I go to teach Shakespeare, and I do, I sometimes go back to the area that I grew up in and have taught Shakespeare to amateurs and got them to do it at RADA, which is our big drama school. I've seen the miracle in them as well. These quite shy kids who aren't very articulate and don't really want to talk about anything suddenly become very articulate because you get, you know, these magical words in your mouth and you suddenly feel empowered and smart and listened to. So, yeah, I'm a big fan.
Very cool. So, well, speaking of Julius Caesar play, so you're playing Brutus, right?
That's right, yeah.
So is it like there's like sort of like a film version of the play, or?
Right, yeah. We had about 4 weeks rehearsal, and then we filmed it for BBC 4 which was very odd because we were rehearsing it for a 900-seater theatre. And before we got a chance to perform in that theatre, we were filming it on camera, which is, I'm sure you know, much smaller acting in terms of your size of your performance. So we got lots of detail into it that we then, when we went back into the rehearsal room, was able to add to what we were doing. So now that we're doing it in the theatre, I think we sort of value that performance, that sort of miniature performance, because it sort of added depth, and it's usually not that way around. Usually you perform a play and then you get to film it. So it's much more difficult to bring it down in size. But that way it was fantastic, because we hadn't any experience of playing it in front of an audience. But they're two very different performances.
Mm-hmm.
They in some ways couldn't be more different.
Did you, I mean, when they filmed it, did you go all the way through like it was a play, or did they have you stop so they could reset the camera? Or
we filmed it on location, as we say. So basically, we did a bit in the theatre, but we filmed that after we filmed the location stuff.
Oh.
So the beginning of the play and the end, the middle of the play and the end of the play is in the theatre. But actually, the body of the play we filmed in a disused Chinese supermarket in North London, which is full of rats and pigeons, but looks fantastic on screen.
Yeah, that's the part with like there's escalators and stuff, right?
That's right. Yes.
Very cool.
As often these things are, they look like glorious sets on camera, but you look behind it and it's filthy, caked in guano, and all rats dropping. But it worked very well, and we're all very pleased with the result of it.
Do you have any sort of like traditions or superstitions like going on stage?
I don't think I do. I think I overslept on Saturday, so I was rushing to get back into the theatre, and I didn't have time to do anything. Actually, the only thing I need to do is warm up the voice, and I've got quick ways of doing that. I like to pray before I go on, but that's not really a ritual. That's just something that I do, and if I didn't get a chance to do it. And sometimes if I've had a long run, I like to break the routine by doing something completely other, or really, really not think about what I have to do until I step out.
Ah.
Yeah, just to sort of, partly scare myself, but partly sort of wake myself up, really.
It helps you grow as an actor, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah, and also not get in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen if you do a long run. You think, I just do this, and I stand here, and I make this gesture. And sometimes you forget to think it through like you did the first time. So it's sometimes good to wake yourself up.
Have you had any sort of, or you or like anyone, in any of the performances that you've been on, has there been like a mishap backstage or a rehearsal or heaven forbid on stage?
I was doing a production of Hamlet on Broadway, and Rafe Fiennes, who was playing Hamlet, was doing a sword fight with Lewis. Actually, he was playing Laertes, and Rafe's sword broke in two.
Oh no!
It was a rapier, and it was like slow motion, and we saw it sort of spinning in the air, going into the auditorium, and we had loads of stars coming to see the show at that point. So we just wondered which, was it going to be Kirk Douglas who was going to get it in the eye, or was Tom Cruise going to be decapitated? And it went through into the auditorium, and Ray very kindly stopped the whole show and went, "Are you all right?" Whoever it wasn't anybody famous. And they went, "Yes, I'm fine," and said, "We're going to have to start again." And the audience loved it, as they do when things go wrong.
Of course. Wow. When was that? When was the Broadway?
That was 1995.
Okay, I was going to say, because I'm in New York now, and I was like, I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, no. It was before you went to college, I would imagine.
Yeah.
From your voice, I'm sure you were probably about 5 at the time. But also, it was at the Belasco, which is a beautiful old theatre.
Do you think King Lear is funny?
Yeah, I think I'm of the opinion that we get some laughs out of Julius Caesar, would you believe? I think that Shakespeare is witty playwright, and so I don't think even when he writes a tragedy that he forgets that even in darkness people do laugh. Even in darkness there is a release, and sometimes when you open people up and make them laugh, instead to make them cry, because emotionally they've been sort of relaxed, if you like, and engaged. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having laughter even within tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Having worked with soldiers and doctors at some points in my life, even in terrible situations, there is humour. There has to be almost to in any way survive it. So I think that there is a dark humour in King Lear, and I think, a line like "out vile jelly" when Cornwall plucks out Gloucester's eyes is nothing but dark humour, because he could have said anything. There's 100 different words he could have used for that, that organ's coming out of somebody's eye. But jelly just makes you giggle, even though it's an awful thing that's happening. and I think that's Shakespeare's genius. And then you've got to think about things like Macbeth, where they've just stabbed Duncan, and they're terrified, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. And then seconds later, Shakespeare introduces this drunk porter who's talking about the fact that because he drinks, he can't get it up. And if only he drank more, he probably could get it up. But then again, if I drink too much, then I can't get it up. And you think, hang on, they've just murdered the king. Why are we listening to this stand-up comedian? Well, he does it because he knows that the audience needs a bit of a break. So, he's... I think even in tragedy, Shakespeare's always got his eye on comedy.
His eye on comedy. No pun intended.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm here all week.
Shifting gears a little bit, what is something that you're passionate about? What's your thing outside of work? Do you travel, food, frisbee golf? What is it?
Passion. I think I love my clarinet. I've just started playing it in the last couple of years.
Really?
Yeah, and it is a thing that I reach for, the healthiest thing I reach for. I'm not particularly good at it. I've only just learned to play a piece by heart, but I do love it.
What piece, if I can ask?
It's called Te Deum, and it's by Marc Carpentier, and he's a French composer. And it's a lovely tune. I think loads of people would know it. It goes dum da di dum 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 da dum da di dum da di dum. So it's quite well known.
It's used for sporting events.
It's used for sporting events. My driver tells me.
Oh, okay. Well, I've seen you on lots of different television programs. It's funny because it's always the first thing that I see that people are in that I remember. So like Philip Seymour Hoffman, for example, has gone on to do tons of great things. I've seen him on Broadway, etc. But I always, when I hear his name, I think of him as Dusty from the movie Twister.
Oh, right, yes, of course, yeah.
So for you, the first thing I ever saw you in was Neverwhere as the Marquis de Carabas.
Oh, gosh, yeah, it was great fun. I remember being so happy. There's very few jobs where I remember the day I got it, or I remember that feeling when somebody says, yes, they want you to do it. Because it was one of those parts that wasn't necessarily written for a black performer. And I've always seen myself as an actor first, and the fact that I happen to be black is by the way. But I do understand that some people don't see that in that way. They always think, oh, he's black, and shall he play this part, or should he, or is it possible? But it was one of those roles where I absolutely felt that I knew the character and could do the character, but were they going to give it to me? And I know that there were a couple of other actors, very well-known ones, in fact, who were also up for it, and they were not black.
Mm.
I was so pleased on the basis that I must have I know it sounds very boastful, but it felt like I must have been good enough for them to just go, well, it doesn't matter that he's black, and weren't thinking of him as being black. He's really good, and he's the right guy for it. So I was very pleased on all sorts of levels. And then I got to meet Neil Gaiman, who's just a superstar.
I know, isn't he?
and a sweetheart of a man, and very encouraging. And it was the first time he'd had anything come alive, and he was so pleased and sort of humble and just lovely. And that character is a dream character. If somebody asked me to play it now, there's very few characters you go, oh, I don't want to revisit that. Most characters, you've had enough of them. But the Marquis, I'd love to revisit. You know, what's not to love? A 200-year-old Marquis living in the underground of London.
Suave, and he's got the flappy coat.
And the amazing coat, which I said I was going to buy, but they said, oh, we might do a second series, and so we'll keep it. And they did keep it, to the point at which, of course, it's, I believe, been stolen.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I'm never to be seen again. It'll turn up at some convention somewhere, I imagine. Somebody saying, well, I didn't steal it, but I know I know a couple of people who knew who did it, but I got mine legitimately. And it would be sold for hundreds of pounds. But yes, I would love to revisit that character again. And hopefully he'll do it. He'll do it at some point, because he's creatively, I think his eye is still on doing Neverwhere. I don't think he's forgotten about it.
Oh, that's good. That's exciting to hear. Let's see, what else? Seen you in Doctor Who in the first season of the Russell T Davies reboot.
That's right. I was in the last 2 episodes. The Bad Wolf episodes, as they call them. Well, I was not a massive Doctor Who fan. And I always found the Doctor quite a scary character, not a friendly character. And I rather liked that about him, that he was a bit ambiguous. That he was like your older uncle, but actually a little bit dodgy, and you didn't really understand what he knew, but you knew he knew a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the dodgy uncle.
Yeah, you didn't quite know where he would lead you or what would happen, but you were going to be safe, but it was also going to be dangerous. But what I was surprised about was when I went to Bristol to Cardiff to do it. When I got on set, they said, "Would you like to see the TARDIS?" They sort of whispered it to me like it was the greatest secret in the world. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fine, yeah." And I thought I should actually sound a bit more enthusiastic, so I said, "Yeah, show it to me." But it was only when they led me to it and showed me the interior that I went, "Wow, this is amazing. I'm actually standing in the TARDIS."
Wow.
I'm inside the TARDIS, and then I thought, I can see why this is extraordinary. And the other thing as well is being killed by a Dalek is, everybody should try it.
Yeah.
Because these things, I suppose in the olden days, they might have been pushed around or pulled around with invisible strings and things, but these are sort of, they are motorized vehicles, basically, and they're about 6 foot tall. And I'm only 5'8", so it was, I have to say, rather intimidating to have this thing coming at me.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that big.
Yeah, and the voice, because there's somebody just off stage doing the Exterminate voice, who I have managed to meet, and that was lovely. But they are massive and they're solid, and it was very scary. But really good fun, and I'm very, very glad that I got disintegrated by a Dalek.
Of all your roles, what are you most proud of?
The Emperor Jones, a Eugene O'Neill play that I did at the National Theatre, and the play that I'm doing now, Julius Caesar, which is probably going to be on PBS a little bit later, and I think the BBC 4 are intending to rerun it, and it'll be available on DVD, so I'm very proud of that.
Oh, great.
And I'm also proud of being involved in the upcoming Henry V as well, which is the other BBC Shakespeare that I did last year. I am very privileged to have done a lot of work that I'm very proud of, and if anybody wants to see anything that I've done, I'm very flattered that they do.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I'm just really glad that people who watch sci-fi are as loyal as they are, because I think there aren't many fans that are as loyal as sci-fi fans. They're also remarkably sane, which I wasn't really expecting. They've all been really nice and of such a vast age range, and as I said, they're very loyal and smart.
Paterson, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview today.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Cheers, you too. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Hot Sauce, brought to you by PlainKetchup.com. Please subscribe, rate, and comment on iTunes. Check back every week for a new celebrity guest interview or hilarious video. You may also want to subscribe to our video channel on YouTube.com/PlainKetchup. Sign up for our newsletter on PlainKetchup.com. Please like us on Facebook.com/PlainKetchup. And follow us on Twitter @PlainKetchup. Don't forget to support this project by buying Plain Ketchup swag at our Cafe Press store. Have a question? Email Jamie and Lindsay at gmail.com. That's JAIME and LINDSEY at gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay saucy.
Well, speaking of Shakespeare, we have on the what do you call it, the line? The studio line? The phone line? No. On the studio phone? We have on the line. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, on the line.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's my brain's, it's almost midnight here. Okay. So speaking of Shakespeare, we have a Shakespearean actor on the line right now. We're going to try to grab him while he's in his car on the way somewhere. What do you think about that, Lindsay?
Ooh, who is it? Who is it?
It's Paterson Joseph. Let's give him a call.
I thought you said we already have him on the line.
Oh yeah, it's Paterson Joseph. Take him off hold.